Discover the incredible moment when a millionaire's mock became a transformative test of faith. Zachary Thompson sat in the dim light of his kitchen, staring blankly at the lit screen of his computer. The words glared like accusations as his world crumbled beneath him. Just last week, he had been laid off from his job at Hartman Company, and the devastating news loomed over him like a storm cloud. He felt the weight of his family's expectations heavy on his shoulders. His wife, Lisa, was busily caring for their 2 young children, blissfully unaware of the growing anxiety that threatened to engulf him. He should be finding a way to provide for them, not endlessly scrolling through social media, but something kept him rooted. It was the fear of failure, the despair that seeped into the cracks of his very identity. Zach was not just a man without a job, he was Zachary, the father, the dependable husband, the architect in training who had fought to shape his future. Then, his thumb froze over a video that had gone viral, a wealthy millionaire mocking those striving for success. "Hard work is for the unambitious," the man jeered, surrounded by opulence. It twisted a knife deep in Zach. How dare he deride the very essence of grit and determination? Zach's heart pounded, the words echoed in his mind, sparking fury and igniting memories of his own struggles. He wrestled with feelings of resentment and inadequacy. How could someone born with a silver spoon belittle those who scraped and clawed their way to even the brink of success? Before he even realized the seed of a plan had been planted in his mind, he discovered the architecture competition. A chance to win a prize that could turn everything around, yet it felt tainted with the arrogance of the millionaire looming over it. With every detail he researched, his faith in himself wavered. How could he stand a chance against established names? The thought sent chills down his spine, yet the desperate need to reclaim a sense of purpose engulfed him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the weeks passed, Zach's anxiety escalated. Sleepless nights blurred together, filled with ink smudges and crumpled sketches, as he tried to balance family responsibilities with the crushing pressure of the competition's deadline. Childish giggles mixed with exhaustion tugged at him, and Lisa's concern, her eyes brimming with worry over bills, resonated within. With every moment spent away from his children, the burden of guilt amplified. How was he supposed to put his family first while chasing his dreams? Then came the setbacks, a failed material choice that threw off his design, an emergency with one of the kids that derailed a late-night work session. Doubt gnawed at the edges of his mind, creeping into his thoughts, forcing him to confront the impossible question: could he truly succeed? Each step felt mired in trepidation as memories of that millionaire's sneer burned in his mind. Zach clenched the edges of the desk, his heart racing. He was not just competing against designs, he was up against an affront to every struggle he had faced. Holding on to fleeting moments with his family, he realized success was redefined not by wealth but by integrity, grit, and love. As the competition loomed closer, the tension swelled into a suffocating silence, punctuated only by the sound of his racing thoughts. Would his carefully crafted vision resonate? Or would it be lost in the shadows of a millionaire's derision? The day was pending, but uncertainty loomed larger than ever, and Zach was ready to face whatever awaited him, knowing that the outcome could change everything. The day had finally arrived, and Zach stood in front of the competition venue, staring up at the grand facade of the building, which seemed to mock him just as the millionaire had. His heart pounded in his chest, and his thoughts raced as he recalled every moment that had brought him to this point. The late-night revisions, the missed family dinners, the gasps of surprise from Lisa when he revealed the finished prototype, it all bore down on him like a weight, but he refused to let it crush him. He stepped inside, 2 hours before the presentations began. The air buzzed with nervous energy, resonating through the crowd of talented architects and designers, most of whom appeared far more confident than he felt. Each conversation hummed with an undertone of ambition that made his stomach twist uncomfortably. He had fought to get here, to confront the doubts that had filled his mind, yet standing amongst seasoned professionals only amplified his insecurities. Could he truly belong among them? Zach inhaled deeply, the crisp scent of freshly printed paper and polished wood grounding him. He spotted his work displayed at the far end of the room, and a sense of pride surged within him. It was more than just a design, it was a culmination of his experiences, the sacrifices made, the love of family captured in architectural form. Each line and angle told a story of perseverance, but then, a familiar anger flickered in his chest as he remembered the millionaire's derisive words. He could feel the skepticism seeping from the walls, the whispers of doubt trying to seep into his psyche. The millionaires sat in the front row, their faces expressionless, yet capable of laughter that cut sharper than razors. He suddenly felt small and vulnerable, questioning whether he had the talent to compete or if he was merely a fool embarking on a suicide mission. Throughout the morning, as various competitors set up their designs and practiced their pitches, Zach wrestled with spirals of self-doubt. He escaped to a quiet corner of the venue, palms sweating as he fought the urge to retreat, to give in to the voice that had shadowed him for weeks. It was then that a memory struck him like a bolt of lightning, the first time he laid out his dream for Lisa. He had displayed rough sketches on the kitchen table and her eyes had shone with excitement, holding a faith in him that he struggled to replicate himself. "Zach," he whispered to his reflection in a nearby glass, "you are not doing this for them, you are doing this for you, for everything you've endured, for every family moment sacrificed. This isn't just about winning, it's about showing your children that dreams are worth fighting for." Encouraged by his resolve, he gathered his notes and sketches and returned to his display. He could feel the presence of his family urging him on. With each passing minute, the doubt began to relinquish its hold, transforming into determination. He was here not simply to win, he was here to vindicate every late night, every setback, and every moment he had almost given in to despair. When it was finally his turn to present, Zach took a deep breath, clearing his mind of distractions before stepping in front of the judges. As he began to speak, he felt a surge of confidence flow through him. His voice, once quavering, now emanated strength as he articulated not just his design, but his journey, the path that led him here, the trials that tested him. He spoke of dreams and the beauty of hard work, and as he did, he noticed the judges exchanging glances, a flicker of intrigue appearing on their faces, but what he didn't realize was that the real test was not the competition or the judging panel, it was the moment he finished speaking, turning back to face the crowd. Standing among his peers, he felt not just their eyes, but also the burning anticipation of his own uncertainty transform into bold resolve. The true challenge was only beginning, as it threatened to push him towards an undeniable confrontation with the millionaire's scorn, a confrontation that would demand not just his architectural skill, but the very fabric of his character, who would come out on top, the man who prized integrity, or the one who deemed ambition and hard work obsolete. As Zach walked away from the podium, adrenaline coursing through his veins, he sensed the atmosphere shifting. The murmurs echoing from the audience felt less like whispers of doubt and more like a collective curiosity that he had ignited. Each step he took away from the stage grounded him further in his purpose, in the belief that he could be more than just a face in a crowd. He had told his story, but now he needed to harness that catalytic moment and turn it into a platform for growth. In a quiet corner of the venue, he found a space to gather his thoughts. The remnants of anxiety lingered, but they were tempered by the flicker of excitement that came with self-assertion. He pulled out his sketchbook, the pages filled not just with architectural blueprints, but also with notes about a vision far greater than mere construction. It was a manifesto of sorts, and with each line he traced, he began to envision a future that encompassed more than just victory. His mind wandered to the millionaire who had initially ridiculed him. That scorn had felt like a stone thrown into a still pond, rippling outward into every aspect of his self-worth. Yet, Zach now understood that those ripples could provide clarity instead of chaos. What if he took the contempt and turned it into fuel? Instead of viewing the millionaire as an adversary, he needed to conceive him as a catalyst, an unexpected provocation that had driven him to this extraordinary point. Refocusing his thoughts, Zach recalled his family's expressions, Lisa, the children, when he had shared his earlier dreams, the same dreams that had brought him to this moment. He realized there had been moments of doubt shared among those voices, too, fears passed down in unspoken breaths. But now, there was clarity in their hope, a light that he could leverage to propel himself beyond the safety of self-imposed limitations. As the day moved closer to the finalists' announcement, Zach ran over his presentation notes, interspersing each title with anecdotes that spoke of resilience. He deftly mapped connections between his design and the profound personal transformation he had undertaken. Each paragraph became a testament, not merely of an architect's vision, but of a man's relentless quest for validation, not from the world, but from within. Yet, as messages from the competition circumstantially refocused his attention, he realized the stakes had risen. Winning would no longer be about his architectural prowess alone, it was also about striking a personal chord with an audience hungry for authenticity. With a sharpened resolve, he pledged to connect with each individual, not to sway their allegiance but to illuminate his journey, the raw humanity layered behind his ambitions. When the finalists were soon to be announced, Zach's heart raced, not merely in anticipation for an outcome, but for an opportunity to confront the very beliefs that had bred his previous insecurities. He was neither the favored contestant nor the least, he was Zach, just a man who carried the weight of his desires and fears on his shoulders like armor, and finally, it was announced. His name surged through the room, igniting both hope and renewed pressure. The thrill electrified the air, yet, doubt had not fully dissipated, forming an unshakable knot in his stomach. This was not the time to dwell on fears. He needed to face the millionaire who had doubted him, shoulder to shoulder, in the arena of truth. In that moment, he realized it was not simply about the competition, it was about confronting the very essence of who he had become and learning to redefine his ambition. But as he prepared to step forward, the real question loomed large in his mind: was he truly ready to face the truths that awaited, and what would that confrontation reveal about his future? The time had come to face the millionaire. But more importantly, it was the time to face himself. Would he rise to the occasion, or crumble under the weight of expectation? Zach moved through the throng of finalists, each pulsating with their own blend of anticipation and doubt. The stage loomed ahead like a lighthouse guiding him toward his reckoning. This presented a stage not just for architectural innovation, but an arena for personal confrontation. As he approached, a dynamic blend of emotions whipped through him: excitement, dread, and an undercurrent of resolve. The millionaire stood off to the side, a towering figure of apparent success. Zach's chest tightened as he recalled the earlier moment of mockery that had once festered in his mind. No longer did that moment feel like a defeat, it had metamorphosed into a crucible of transformation. Each negative word hurled by the millionaire had fused with Zach's growing ambition, igniting a spark that whispered of possibility instead of drowning him in despair. Taking a deep breath, Zach reminded himself why he was here. This wasn't just a matter of winning a competition, this was about embodying the story he had unearthed through self-reflection and vulnerability. The stakes were larger than the plans laid upon his sketchbook pages, they reached into the essence of who he was evolving into. Could he unwrap his own layers of doubt and present them as a testament to resilience? The lights dimmed momentarily, but Zach's mind flared brighter. In the hushed silence, he felt the audience's eyes fixated on the conflicting man, the one who held both the weight of expectation and the flame of hope. This was his moment to transcend the confines of his own narrative, to lay bare the truth behind his journey. When he stepped up to the podium, he locked eyes with the millionaire. This wasn't a battle of egos, but an invitation to explore a deeper lesson about respect and perseverance. He decided to tell a story, one outlining the intricate dance between failure and triumph. Now was the time to paint a canvas rich with authenticity. "Thank you for this opportunity," Zach began, his voice unwavering. "I stand before you not only as an architect but as a man shaped by adversity." He wove his narrative through the years of struggle, carving out how the millionaire's mockery had fueled a relentless pursuit for clarity in chaos. With each word, he chiseled away at his self-doubt, revealing a vibrant mosaic of passion and determination. As he spoke of his children, of Lisa, a tapestry of familial love and belief unraveled, binding together moments that had once threatened to tear him apart. The vulnerability in his voice began to resonate with the audience, invoking responses: nods of understanding, smiles of encouragement. He sensed the collective heartbeat of those who had listened to his story. They were no longer spectators, but witnesses to a transformation. With each passing second, he felt the knot in his stomach loosen, shifting into a steady pulse of anticipation. He leaned into moments where his insecurities had threatened to derail him, where his aspirations had nearly faded into oblivion. Each misstep became a foundation on which he built his convictions. The rich irony was that mockery had sparked not humiliation, but renewal. As he concluded, a wave of gratitude enveloped him. This experience had become a turning point, a commitment to be his most authentic self. Now, he had a choice, to embrace this newfound connection with others or retreat back into his own shadows. Once he stepped away from the podium, the applause became a mere backdrop to his unfolding revelation. It wasn't just about the competition anymore, it was about forging identity in the face of public scrutiny, about challenging the shackles of judgment that had once weighed heavily on his heart. As he descended to meet the millionaire once more, a profound realization swelled within him. This was more than a rivalry, it was a chance to redefine what success meant for him. But beneath that exhilaration, a looming question lingered: what if this confrontation ignited not just change within himself, but challenged the millionaire to consider the consequences of his words? The moment was ripe for evolution, yet Zach felt the frosty grip of uncertainty clenching at his core. He took a step forward, the air thick with possibility, knowing that an honest dialogue loomed large. Would he awaken understanding from cynicism, or would his words tumble into a void, unheard? Zach approached the millionaire, a shiver of doubt threading through his spine, but he was no longer that timid architect cowering under scrutiny. He was a man remade by resilience, and this encounter would test the boundaries of his growth. As he reached the edge of the makeshift platform, the potentially life-altering conversation hung in the air, infused with tension. "Zach, your presentation was quite compelling," the millionaire said, his expression unreadable beneath layers of calculated severity. "You have a knack for storytelling. But tell me, do you think vulnerability really translates into success? This is an architectural competition, after all." Zach felt the weight of the question sink into him. Was the millionaire actually seeking insight, or merely baiting him for a reaction? Defensiveness flashed in his mind, yet he quickly harnessed that impulse, sensing a deeper challenge. It was a chance to confront the very scrutiny that had once stifled him. "Success isn't solely defined by winning accolades or recognition," Zach responded, striving for a steadiness that belied the storm within. "For me, it's rooted in authenticity and connection. If I can inspire others to embrace their struggles, then I believe I've succeeded." A flicker of something passed through the millionaire's eyes, perhaps curiosity or skepticism. Zach pressed forward, unwilling to bypass what could be a pivotal breakthrough. "What about you?" he asked, his tone shifting to reflect genuine inquiry. "What drives your success? Surely there's a story behind your own journey." The millionaire shifted slightly, his imposing figure now seeming somehow less menacing. "I've built my empire through a mixture of ambition and resilience, yes, but it wasn't forged from vulnerability. People respect strength in business, cold, unyielding strength." Zach examined the man before him, realizing this conversation could pivot in multiple directions. "But at what cost?" he challenged gently. "Strength without vulnerability can leave us isolated. There's power in human connection, even in business. I think we can both agree it's not so simple as a win-loss paradigm." The audience surrounding them had fallen silent, captivated by this unexpected exchange. Zach seized upon the attention, recognizing an opportunity to extend his earlier revelations into the broader context. "What if we redefine success together, not just as individual victories, but as moments that elevate us all? Isn't that the essence of true leadership?" A pause stretched between them, thick with unspoken reflections. The millionaire regarded him with a furrowed brow, and Zach's heart raced. Was he breaking through? Could his words find a way to resonate within this man who had once sought to belittle him? Suddenly, the tension shifted. The millionaire's steel facade softened, just a fraction, allowing the possibility of transformation to breathe. "You've certainly stirred something in me, Zach," he said slowly. "But change is not easily embraced, particularly by those who fear vulnerability. True change often scares us the most, Zach affirmed, his determination rippling through him. But isn't fear an invitation to growth? I stand here today not simply to reject past ridicule but as living proof that we can rise from it. Murmurs rippled through the audience, their reactions embedding a new layer to Zach's narrative. The psychological shift was palpable, the crowd seemed to hold their breath, aware of the delicate moment unfolding. Whatever the outcome, both of them were participating in a dialogue far more profound than architectural design, yet even amidst this burgeoning revelation, self-doubt momentarily gnawed at Zach's interior. Was he capable of planting a seed of change that could blossom? Would he really challenge the millionaire's way of thinking, or was he bound to fall short? Feeling a crescendo of intensity build around him, Zach glanced back at the crowd, then fixed his eyes firmly on the millionaire. What do you say? Will you join me in considering a new definition of success, one that allows for vulnerability? Together, we might just inspire others to embrace their authentic stories. The millionaire seemed to grapple with this proposition, uncertainty showing itself within his features. The air crackled with tension as Zach awaited an answer that might redefine their trajectories. Would this moment herald the birth of a new understanding, or dissolve into a mere footnote in their stories? Silence reigned, amplifying the weight of possibility between them, as both men and the audience realized that they stood on the precipice of change. Would they dare take the leap together, or would this moment slip through their fingers? The silence stretched, a taut string ready to snap. Zach couldn't pull his gaze away from the millionaire's furrowed brow, the flashes of uncertainty rippling through this titan of industry. In that moment, he found a powerful resolve surging through him. It was not merely about defending vulnerability, it was about showing its unbreakable strength. What if success were not a solitary journey? Zach pressed on, shifting slightly to engage not just the millionaire, but the entire audience. What if true leadership means extending our hands to others? What if it's about creating spaces where others feel safe to share their authentic stories? He saw a flicker of intrigue in the millionaire's expression, a slight shift that excited Zach and made his heart pulse faster. The connection was forming, a bridge that could lead them to undiscovered territories of thought. The crowd leaned in, granting him their attention, and with it, he recognized an opening, a chance to channel every ounce of his growth into something far greater. Just as Zach began to feel the weight of potential success, the millionaire spoke, his voice calm yet commanding. You want me to reconsider my entire approach to business based on what? A feeling? Not just a feeling, Zach countered, stepping closer, emboldened by his conviction. A reality. The rates of burnout and dissatisfaction in our industry speak volumes. People are more than their productivity, they are stories waiting to be told. Imagine if we merged our strengths in audacity and vulnerability. That's where innovation lies, where businesses can evolve. His words hung in the air, volatile and charged. He could feel the pulse of the audience behind him, waiting on the edge of excitement and disbelief. Would this powerful man dismantle his fortress of rigidity? Could the millionaire transform, bending his long-formed beliefs? Zach couldn't afford to back down now. The millionaire's jaw tightened as he considered Zach's challenge. It was a battle of perspectives, and Zach felt profoundly unsettled juxtaposed with the mounting pressure. He sensed his own internal echoes of doubt re-emerging. Would he be seen as a naive dreamer, or as a legitimate voice for change? He drew in a breath, grounding himself in his growth and the meaningful journey that had led him to this moment. The years of hard work, late nights, and exhausting self-reflection filled him with purpose. I can't pretend this journey doesn't terrify me, Zach admitted, his voice steady and intimate. But I'm here, standing before you arguably trembling like I did back then, but knowing that our fears can fuel us towards something transformational. The businessmen regarded him with heightened scrutiny, as if weighing the potential of their cooperation against a familiar resistance that threatened to root him to his old convictions. You don't think it'll put me at risk? He finally asked, almost incredulously. Risk is where opportunity lies, Zach replied, feeling the sincerity in his own voice. The world is aching for connection, and the last thing we need is more walls. Imagine all the people watching this exchange. They need leaders willing to step beyond the surface, willing to admit that they're human too. A shift occurred, subtle yet significant. The millionaire's posture relaxed slightly, allowing a moment of vulnerability through the ice of his previous demeanor. Zach sensed it. He was on the brink of a breakthrough, but were his words enough to catalyze this pivotal moment? Time stood still, each second drawing them closer to a new definition of success. He knew this was not just about winning a competition anymore, it was about fostering resilience in a landscape that desperately needed it. Would the millionaire catch this vision with him, or would he retreat into his fortress again? Zach's heart raced, every second stretching the current atmosphere taut with potential. What would the millionaire decide? In that hushed expanse of uncertainty, an unexpected thought struck him. What if he had to prepare himself for failure, regardless of the path the millionaire chose? How would he navigate that, and how would it affect his journey moving forward? As he wrestled with these questions, the world around him seemed to hold its breath, teetering on the edge of profound change or the return to complacency. The moment of choice had arrived. Would it dissolve into obscurity, or would he and the millionaire together ignite the spark needed to reveal a new horizon altogether? Zach held his breath, aware that the stakes were far beyond his personal ambitions. Every heartbeat echoed the silent question: was he prepared for the possibility of being dismissed? He could almost feel the weight of every eye in the room, the expectation resting heavily on his shoulders. He noticed the millionaire's furrowed brow, the man's internal struggle elegantly worn across his face. This was not the ferocity of a businessman who intended to bulldoze forward, this was hesitation, vulnerability wrapped tightly in the guise of authority. Zach continued to study him, wanting to reach into that facade and pull out the humanity buried within. Could he challenge not just the millionaire's beliefs but also the framework that shaped them? Leadership, Zach began, forcing himself to remain steady, is not just about influence, it's about nurturing a legacy that reflects our values. If we only focus on profit margins and growth metrics, we miss the mark on what really matters: the impact we leave on the people we lead. The audience shifted, their collective energy coming alive as they hung on his words. Would the millionaire traverse this journey with him, or remain ensnared in the safety of his empire? Zach felt alive, the adrenaline coursing through him like fire. This was why he had endured years of struggle to convert fear into resilience and faith. "I understand risk," the millionaire finally said, his voice softer yet inquisitive. "But what do you propose will change if I allow this notion of vulnerability into my business?" "The first step," Zach replied, "is to create platforms where your team can engage without the fear of consequences. Implement regular feedback sessions, vulnerability moments, where people share their challenges and triumphs. The moment you humanize the workplace, you cultivate compassion. That's where innovation will flourish." He watched as the businessman absorbed his words, the steel in his demeanor beginning to falter. Zach knew he was treading on delicate ground, yet he felt the shift unfolding. This man had power anointing him with a transformative potential worth chasing. But what about the naysayers? The millionaire replied, a hint of defiance emerging. "What if the shareholders revolt? This isn't just an idea, it's a risk to my bottom line and reputation." Zach's heart raced even faster. This was the moment requiring total honesty. "And what about your soul? What legacy do you want to leave behind? If transformation comes at the peak of discomfort, then embrace it. You're not building a business, you're sculpting a community." The millionaire's eyes widened. There it was, the fire ignited by an unexpected epiphany. Zach could sense it. The crowd too could feel it, the anticipation palatable. Would the man continue to play it safe, or take a leap of faith into the unknown? Zach's mind flooded with imagery of what lay ahead, of the paths untrodden and the challenges faced. But uncertainty lurked, weaving a narrative of potential failure among dreams. How would he cope if this moment evaporated? He fought against the knotted ball of anxiety forming in his gut. Would he rise from this or step back into the shadows? "Your legacy is crafted in moments like this," Zach urged, his voice unwavering. "In the willingness to evolve, to be open to new ideas, to face challenges head-on. Just take a step. Led by example, and the tides will change. Silence cloaked the room, thick and tangible. The culmination of shared stories and unspoken truths lay in the air like sparks ready to ignite. Finally, the millionaire drew in a deep, shuddering breath. I need to think about this. Zach nodded, recognizing this as a tentative first step toward transformation. Yet, the flicker of doubt still tormented him. Would he have the strength to endure this journey, irrespective of the outcome? He needed to confront his own fears. As the initial shock began to dissipate, he stole a glance at the audience, their faces a complex tapestry of hope and skepticism. Each one watching him closely, waiting for the next revelation as if it could shift collective understanding. What would be the climactic move that bended the trajectory of this moment? As uncertainty loomed like a distant storm, Zach felt fortified by his convictions, yet aware that the true challenge lay ahead. What awaited him in this unfolding narrative of ambition and vulnerability? He found himself wrestling not only with the fate of the millionaire but with an exploration of his own aspirations. Was he truly ready to face the reverberations of both victory and failure, or would he falter when push came to shove? These questions pulsated through him relentlessly, marking the path of unforeseen trials ahead. Zach stepped off the stage, the clamor of curiosity still ringing in his ears. The world outside the conference hall felt stark against the electric tension he had just left behind. Sunlight pierced through the towering glass walls, yet it seemed to illuminate only the shadows within him. As he walked through the bustling lobby, each step accompanied by a chorus of doubts, he replayed the conversation in his mind. Had he genuinely touched the millionaire's heart, or had he merely scratched at the surface of an impenetrable fortress? The audience was still with him. They lingered in the air like ghosts of what could be. Conversations ignited around him as others discussed the poignant moments Zach had orchestrated, yet their words felt distant. His confidence wavered. Had he the fortitude to face the repercussions of his advocacy for change? The stakes were high, and the brief flicker of success had dimmed into a haunting uncertainty. Later that evening, Zach found himself pacing his small apartment, a stark contrast to the opulence he had just exited. The space was filled with remnants of his inner chaos: a neglected painting, a half-finished manuscript, and a coffee cup long void of warmth. All around him were symbols of unfinished dreams. He drew an intentional breath, knowing he needed focus. This moment called for clarity. He settled into the beaten leather chair that had witnessed many of his musings and faced the skyline of the city he called home. What if he committed to this journey? What if this was not solely about altering a millionaire's mind but about redefining his own purpose? Suddenly, it struck him, he hadn't fully considered the enormity of what lay ahead. His personal evolution included a commitment to himself. In that realization, he found an unexpected spark begin to unfurl within him. The world was brimming with challenges, but he realized opportunities could thrive amidst the chaos. Motivated by his thoughts, he reached for his notebook, determined to pen down a new vision for his path, a manifesto of courage shaped by lessons learned. He scrawled aspirations and goals as though each word would serve not just as a wish but as a foundation for his next steps. He would create workshops aimed at guiding others to embrace vulnerability, building communities within organizations, and bridging gaps that corporate structures often widened. Yet another question nagged at him: how would he convince skeptics he held the key to transformation? Could he leverage his own struggles as a narrative that would resonate with others? The course he charted meant facing down the trepidation of sharing his story, the very fears he hoped to diminish in others. The more he sought clarity, the more he unearthed unsettling truths. Authenticity did not come easy, especially in a world where the facade of success was often prioritized over genuine discourse. He wasn't just seeking to alter a millionaire's business model. He was striving to redefine what success felt like on a personal level. Sunset painted the horizon with bold strokes of orange and purple. As the colors blended, he felt a surge of both hope and trepidation. The blurred lines between ambition and fear spoke to him. This was a personal journey of faith, not just in his mission but in his capability to withstand potential setbacks. With renewed resolve, Zach gathered the courage that had flickered in the shadows. It was time to confront both external challenges and internal demons. He would reach out to the millionaire again and emphasize the importance of human-centered practices not just for the company's sake but for his own legacy that echoed through time. As he prepared his next move, he couldn't shake the feeling he was standing at the precipice of something monumental. The whispers of doubt clashed with a tide of determination, and they threatened to pull him under. But this was merely the beginning of a transformation. As he grasped the magnitude of what lay ahead, what awaited him when he reached out next, would he find support or rejection? The stage was set for something far greater than simply winning an audience. He was on the edge of an emotional trial that could redefine everything he believed about leadership and his role in shaping the future. As dawn broke, Zach awoke with a mix of anxiety and determination coursing through him. Today was the day he would reach out to the millionaire, a pivotal moment that seemed to tauten his very being. The notion of simply picking up the phone felt like clutching a live wire, anticipation sparking against the backdrop of fear. After a quick shower, he dressed in his favorite navy blue blazer, the fabric worn and familiar. In its threads lay reminders of past presentations, keynotes, and pitches, each a testament to his journey but also his struggles. He caught a glimpse of himself in the bathroom mirror and confronted the man looking back at him. Was he ready to challenge the colossal fortress of doubt? He sat at his desk, the same battered chair creaking beneath him, and opened his laptop, fingers hovering over the keys. The blank screen mocked him, urging him to commit his thoughts to reality. He needed a strategy that was more than just a call, it had to resonate. The single thought of articulation drifted in the air almost like a phantom whisper, taunting his uncertainties. Could he genuinely articulate the connection between corporate success and empathy, the very idea he hinted at on stage? Zach began to draft a message, pouring his heart into each paragraph. It wasn't merely a request for a meeting, it was an invitation, an opportunity to explore uncharted waters of leadership that could not only redefine their business but also his own identity. The more he wrote, the clearer his vision became, but just as quickly, self-doubt crept back in. Would this millionaire see past Zach's insecurity? Or would the invitation vanish into an inbox with millions of others? He paused, overwhelmed by a swarm of scenarios replaying in his mind. His words echoing through the vast silence of uncertainty seemed a cruel joke. Was he really about to gamble his burgeoning purpose on a chance conversation? Yet somewhere, intertwined with the anxiety, lay a flicker of hope. If he failed, at least he was stepping out of the shadows, unwilling to allow the fears of yesterday silence his voice today. Taking a deep breath, he hit send. What happened next was a swift motion of duality. His heart raced, each beat echoing in his ears, and simultaneously, an all-consuming clarity washed over him. He had taken action. He stood on the precipice of change, yet now he had to wait. What felt so liberating also ushered in a new layer of vulnerability, the kind that would pierce him deeper if met with silence. While he waited, Zach considered how deeply his transformation resonated with layers of authenticity he previously ignored. The act of reaching out symbolized more than a professional liaison, it peeled back layers of emotion he once tucked away. How could one man's perspective shift if this millionaire could relate to his truth? Hours stretched on, the anticipation painful. During that time, he reflected on potential dialogues and counterarguments that might arise. Yet amidst the chaos brewed a desire to articulate, not just to assert a perspective but to unveil a vision. Suddenly, the sound of a notification jolted him from his musings, reverberating through the silence of the room. He glanced at his phone. It was a message from the millionaire. With a mix of exhilaration and dread, he opened the message, heart racing as he braced for what lay ahead. Inside him, a tempest raged between fear and fervor. The path to transformation was starting, but what lay beyond this first hurdle? The revelation was both intoxicating and frightening. This was only the beginning of a far more profound engagement with the unpredictable landscape of leadership, and he had much to unearth within himself. Did the message signal support or skepticism? Would it lead to the collaboration he envisioned, or was he merely a momentary speculator in a vast ocean of indifference? Zachary Thompson stood facing the imposing edifice of the corporate conglomerate, the refuge of the very millionaire who had mocked hard work so brazenly. This confrontation held more weight than any design competition, and it unraveled not just his ambitions but the very essence of success he had so deeply scrutinized since that fateful moment. With each breath, he felt strengthened by the resolve that had blossomed from adversity. He no longer approached this meeting as the anxious architect, but as a man transformed by his journey. He had conquered self-doubt through resilient vulnerability, a pillar of his newly defined success. The stakes were no longer about mere accolades. It was now an opportunity to construct a different future for not only himself but for countless others yearning for connection and authentic leadership. As he stepped inside, he was enveloped in an atmosphere thick with expectation. The hustle of corporate life reigned supreme, a world Zach had once sought to penetrate but had just begun to truly understand. Today, he was not just a visitor but an advocate of a concept that could reshape the very pillars of this establishment. Vulnerability as strength. Zach entered the conference room filled with executives and peer mentors, their faces reflecting the shiny polish of success-driven personas. Yet, today, Zach would challenge that script. He stood before them, a beacon of authenticity, radiating an intensity of purpose that had been kindled by both fear and triumph. "Thank you for the opportunity to speak," Zach began, locking eyes with the millionaire. "Today, I share not merely an architectural vision but an insight that could amplify our understanding of leadership. What if we consider vulnerability not as a weakness but as a strength that binds us as teams and elevates our innovations?" The room silenced, absorbing his words. As he shared his story, weaving in moments of doubt, faith, and transformation, Zach felt the energy shift. The collective breath of the audience synchronized with his narrative, a rhythm grounded in recognition and lingering curiosity. "Ambition is often lauded for driving us forward," he articulated with growing confidence, "but it is our humanity that fosters genuine progress. When was the last time we redefined our successes through the lens of connection and empathy?" He watched their expressions change, the hardness softening, curiosity infused with intrigue. Zach's shrewd focus on his purpose reigned supreme. This was not merely a conversation, it was a movement and awakening to deeper themes of authentic leadership. We live in a time where disconnection breeds dissatisfaction, a reality mirrored in our workplace environments. Let us bridge that gap, let us construct spaces where leaders can share their vulnerabilities, where stories become the foundation of innovation. As he concluded, a voice interrupted a senior executive, startled the room. "But vulnerability doesn't necessarily equate to business success. We have a bottom line to uphold." Zach stepped closer, undeterred and emboldened. "And what if that bottom line thrives when we unlock the engagement and loyalty of our teams? Human beings succeed when they feel valued beyond their productivity. The richest currency in any organization is trust. By fostering a culture of transparency, we convert skepticism into shared victories." The atmosphere intensified, murmurs igniting discussions that strayed from the rigid confines of traditional corporate rhetoric. Unexpectedly, the millionaire leaned forward, his brow furrowing with a mix of contemplation and growing curiosity. The spark he had once viewed as a nuisance now appeared to challenge the very essence of his beliefs. "You build an interesting case, Zach. How do we lead this kind of transformation, especially in a culture steeped in results?" he asked, his voice resonating with a hint of vulnerability. Feeling the tide shift, Zach seized the moment. "It begins with a commitment to redefining our narrative within business, a narrative where leadership isn't just measured by profit margins, but by the lives we impact. By sharing our stories, we foster connection, and with it, loyalty, not just as employees but as ambassadors of a shared vision," he affirmed, his conviction unwavering. The room was alive, the chatter evolving into an eagerness to explore uncharted territories. He had reframed vulnerability from a stigma into an invitation for collaboration. Change was not just possible, it was now palpable. As the meeting transformed into an open dialogue, Zach felt solid confidence crystallizing within him. He was seen as a peer, the architect not only of buildings but of meaningful transformation. When they parted ways, he received a resounding affirmation, a proposal to pilot a leadership workshop centered on vulnerability and authentic engagement. He had finally demonstrated his worth not merely as a competitor but as a changemaker. Zach departed, pride illuminating each step. He had earned recognition not only for his architectural prowess but for establishing his voice among corporate giants. The millionaire who once scoffed at ambition was now poised to collaborate with him to carve a new path for success and leadership. This was the exquisite culmination of a journey marked by personal transformation. Zachary Thompson had conquered his fears, demonstrated his integrity, and taken monumental strides toward redefining success in a world that often preached isolation. As he walked away inspired, he held firm in the belief that each moment of connection would echo through the landscape of corporate culture for generations to come. Now was the time for you to take a step forward. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that could ignite your own transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and help us share inspiring triumphs like Zach's. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending below. You might just inspire someone else. Do not wait even one more second to share this video. Send it to at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting our channel through these actions.